Well, what an interesting sight. Indianapolis. Out of all weekends of the year. What a coincidence, I guess. Here we are in Indiana in the United States of America for the SimLab Pro Cup for 2019. It's all on RaceSpotTV. Streaming live on the iRacing Esports Network. Cars ready to go on their pace lap to begin today's 32-lap event. Don't forget, of course, to visit RaceSpot.tv/timing for more information. Jonathan Simon here in the commentary booth. Paul Smith on production. Apologies for the late start to the broadcast, but we are ready to go here, sorting out a couple of technical gremlins. But you haven't missed a lick of action. The qualifying results just concluded, just about a couple of minutes to go. We will look at your grid over the next pace lap, of course, as well. We'll actually look at it now as the pace lap begins, so perfect timing. Craig Ridley ends up on pole with a 58.9. Thrilling lap by him. Of course, these qualifying results probably won't matter, considering these cars, well, they're probably going to be glued together most of the event. It's going to be a hectic race coming up right now. Steve Kube, Scott Kirshner starting behind him as well. Look at Daniel Fletcher all the way down in the 5th position, but still optimistic for his chances because you never know here at Indy. It's just that kind of weekend. Jean-Michel Neon, Aldous Particular, 6th, 7th. Fabio Berchtold rounds out the 4th row. Rounding out the top 10s, John Morgan and Anthony Rice, of course, too. Only 3 other drivers to set lap times here. And it goes all the way down to Pete Tinkler. The last 4 drivers, including Ollie Peacock, Ollie Rotgen, Henry Robert, and Mark Varon, will start down the back of the order. Pace lap begins, of course, as well. And how fitting, of course, to have, as we said, in the month of May, during the Monaco Grand Prix weekend, during the Indianapolis 500 weekend. What else is on this weekend? The Coca-Cola 500 or 600. You've got the Porsche Esports Super Cup that happened overnight for iRacing. So much racing to go on. There's just no time to cover it all. So on this pace lap, of course, too, and we must provide a couple of details that include the fact that this car will be entirely full throttle throughout Indianapolis. They will be untroubled through here, of course, as well. Pretty quick times there, it has to be said, in this car. It's not that easy. As easy as it looks out there, as easy as it will look, it is not that easy to head into the 58s for the likes that Craig Ridley did. Definitely without a tow. But with that slipstream advantage here today, who knows how things will pan out. The worst part about this, an Aussie and a Brit on production calling an American race, so this will never go well, but we'll try our best nevertheless here. Pace car will pull in. 32 laps of action coming up. Ridley on the inside line here for this double file start will get the field going. So all week there's been Indy fixed races. There's been Pro Mazda now with their time to shine. And Craig Ridley will begin action here. For 32 laps of racing, we go green from Indianapolis. Into the first corner, untouched is Ridley with a rapid getaway. And after watching Indianapolis, it feels like an eternity for these cars to head through turn 1 and 2 here. The outside line just not seeming to work right now. It's that inside in the draft, and that's helping here on the early stretch. Cars slicing and dicing for position. Felt like we almost had 4 wide here on the opening lap. So Ridley demoted to 3rd as Scott Kirshner now heads into the lead, heading into these final couple of corners. Around the outside goes Steve Kube, but we know the outside line this early on in the event may not work to perfection. 3 wide for the lead here on the opening lap. That's Kurt Van Wagenen around the outside in the number 3. But again, the outside line here at turn 1, not favoring anybody in the early stages of this event. Plenty of racing. Look at Craig Ridley shuffle down the order, our pole position sitter, down to 7th here on the opening lap. Ollie Peacock down the back of the order does not want to lose the draft here early on in this event. 3 cars not in the event anymore. I'm not sure if they even took to the start. Oh, huge crash. Steve Kube involved, who was leading early on in the first lap. Who else? That's Kurt Van Wagenen. Fabio Berchtold, of course, too. Oh, why so early in the event, fellas? Here we look at a replay, of course, too. No pace car out there for the moment. Kurt Van Wagenen was involved, and where does this happen? It happens definitely towards the front here with the leaders. Oh, goodness. Clumsy accident. Can't move lines like that. And I sort of lost track of Fabio Berchtold having a... Oh, goodness. Well, that car's not going to stop spinning for quite a while. Fabio Berchtold, of course, as well. How was he involved in this? Seemed to have a bit of aero push through this corner, and then, oh, he's just caught up. Unlucky there. And thank God this is sim racing, because, well, in real life, the car wouldn't spin that often, but certainly for Fabio Berchtold, he avoids a potential injury. Back to racing action, of course, too, so no yellow flags here in this event. Probably for the best, of course, too, so we don't have to deal with that misery around Indianapolis. 3 wide, heading into turn 1 for the lead yet again. Please see the exit of this corner, guys. They do. And on the inside, that's Scott Kirshner alongside Jean-Michel Nayon. Erwin Vandenberg can't make the outside line work yet again. But he's got a shot here at reclaiming the lead. Pete Tinkler in the 4th position, boxed in. Can't hear much from the helicam, but I'm sure it'd sound thrilling to hear the 12 remaining, or 13 remaining Pro Mazda screaming out there on the racetrack. The field spread into 2 at the moment. That's going to hurt that back end of the order. So your front pack at the moment includes Jean-Michel Nayon, Scott Kirshner, Erwin Vandenberg, Pete Tinkler, Aldous Puticulus, Daniel Fletcher, and Craig Ridley has to be careful here because he may lose the back end of this pack. Right on board with Scott Kirshner here. We have a look at the rear end. That's Pete Tinkler in that beautiful, what looks like a Lotus livery, I believe. But Jean-Michel Nayon's famous, always reminds me of the Benetton, that famous livery he runs. Boxed in up the inside. This is Pete Tinkler. Been boxed in for at least over a lap right now. We got 5 cars separated by less than 1/10 of a second here on lap 5. Listen to him scream through the first couple of corners. Scott Kirshner yet again trying to claim the lead. Nayon got a bit unsettled there through the exit. He's going to be careful because he's got an ever screaming here, number 53 of Erwin Vandenberg, who began this lap in the 5th position. Whoa, 4 wide. We had it. It's finally come. That's Pete Tinkler getting sick of staying behind Scott Kirshner. Wow, this is going to be looming. Contacts looming here. Thank God it's not a race of attrition. Jean-Michel Nayon and Pete Tinkler. You could have almost high-fived each other between the two. Up the inside here goes Daniel Fletcher. 4 wide yet again. These drivers not taking a break. And knowing it's sim racing too, you have to consider the political term is error loose, which I think is, I mean, shouldn't be used anymore. It should just be called netcode. But considering that there was no form of netcode contact was remarkable, of course, too. It was that close. Joining this front pack are now 2 other drivers, including Anthony Rice and John Morgan. And the field now, after all that battling, starting to bunch up yet again. It's helping that second peloton. If we get 5 wide, I wouldn't be surprised. As a matter of fact, I want to see it. Who wouldn't want to see it? 4 wide here, heading into turn 3. I've never seen that, I think, ever at Indianapolis, and rightly so. The driver there on the outside, I have to see who that is. Is that Pete Tinkler? No, it's John Morgan. Pete Tinkler's up the inside, excuse me. So John Morgan just backs out for the last moments, and they don't want to lose the draft here. They're about half a second behind, so you can maintain the draft at this rate. But the fact that the outside line isn't working that well, at least in this early stages, or in the early stages of this event, this goes to show that this race won't be easy for anybody to defend, for anybody to pull away up the head. And considering there's less drag as well, these drivers only doing about 250 kilometers an hour, which, if you think about it, is insanely quick. But for Indianapolis' standards, especially for the type of car we're in, is definitely not as quick as the real thing. Drivers bunching up here. You can see the movers and shakers on your screen to the left-hand side. I'm just getting distracted because we want to cover that, but we have 4 wide action once again here on the main straight, of course, too. Oh, that's Scott Kirshner just trying to squeeze Jean-Michel Nayon on the inside. Nayon will head to the lead here on lap 10, despite Kirshner leading the last lap. Let's get those movers and shakers back up on your screen. Let's cover him. For those who didn't see him. Do you have that, Paul? There we go. So that is Vandenberg, I believe. Yep, up 9 positions from a thrilling start. Now, where is Craig Ridley? All the way down in 10th. Ridley, our pole sitter, with a beautiful lap. He's just about joining the pack. He's dropped off here, and he's got to be extremely careful. I think he's got some damage because Craig Ridley's struggling. Oh, goodness, some technical issues there on screen, of course, too. Got to be careful here. Ridley, I think, certainly has some damage because he's struggling to sustain some pace. I don't know. It seemed like he backed off one corner. Why would you back off? How beautiful was that, listening to Erwin Vandenberg on board? And the problem is, when you have those technical issues, as we see 3 wide racing heading into turn 3, is that you lose the draft every single time. Nayon getting a bit unsettled on that inside line. Kirshner close. Kirshner ready to pounce. Oh, contact! Certainly contact there on the main straight between Kirshner and Nayon. That was at 250 kilometers an hour. Could not go quicker in the Pro Mazda. Here's a replay up on screen. And this is the second time this has occurred. Oh, there we go. That was definitely contact. These fellas need to be careful here. Back to live action. And there's Nayon still on the racetrack. Still facing forward. And that's all that matters for the moment. Daniel Fletcher's ever quick. And I definitely rate his chances here as he tries to make the inside line work. Is that Scott Kirshner trying to head back down to the low line? But just doesn't want to back up the throttle. He's trying to try and make this move sealed and delivered here as he gets a little bit of a push there from John Morgan. Morgan with nowhere to go. Just need to back off here. Fletcher not using the draft, which is a bit surprising. And now heads back into it for the corner. So that was all planned. And he wants a good push heading out of turn 2. He doesn't want to get out of the throttle, but I think he's just reached the rear rim. We lost him off screen as we're riding on board with Scott Kirshner. There he is on the right-hand side there in that number 11. White and fluoro green Pro Mazda. Nayon getting a push from that 53 of Vandenberg. And the 44 of Pete Tinkler now ready to make this 3x3 here on the main stretch. But there's Daniel Fletcher for the lead. So we'll head to Paul Smith for some special comments here early on in the event as we ride on board with Daniel Fletcher. Paul, you're on production for this event. First of all, the incident that occurred earlier, a bit clumsy, wasn't it, in the opening laps?
Yes, it was. Yeah, I've just had to sort a little issue there with the audio. But yes, very interesting. A little bit clumsy, as you mentioned, about that one. It did affect three of the drivers there in that one. Cars going onto the grass there on the entry to turn number 3. But these drivers, it is a challenge. One thing to note is the 53 of Owen Vandenberg has got a slight bit of front wing damage just on the front left of his car. It doesn't seem to be affecting him that much here in this race, but I tell you what, he's certainly giving it a good go. I just think he's losing that extra mile, maybe 2 miles an hour of top speed as they're heading towards turn number 1 once again here. But this is what you can expect really in a car like this, which has a bit of aero, but not the most amount of power. So you're always going to end up with it being absolutely flat out all the way through. It's like being running on, say, somewhere like Fontana or somewhere like that, where you can just keep the foot down and just basically run in packs.
Well, they're running in packs at the moment, but I see Craig Ridley down the back end of the order. Did you see him sustain any damage on the opening lap? Because our pole sitter just has no pace in this race.
Do you know what? He could well just be sitting back, waiting for his opportunity. I mean, car looks to be okay. I go on board, and doesn't seem to be any front wing damage either. So maybe he's just playing that tactical game, knows that he's got the pace in the car. Just look after his tyres that little bit in the early going. We're into the second half of the race, right about at the this point of the race. So these guys, they've been pushing hard, and in fact running high there was Kirkner. So a little switch there from John Morgan as well, who we see racing the 60 plus racing adventures as well that we see on RaceSpotTV. But 4 wide, heading down towards turn number 3.
And those are your drivers of Jean-Michel Nayon, John Morgan, and Scott Kirshner. Kirshner around the outside. Nayon and Morgan make contact. Kirshner into the wall. That's the 0-0. John Morgan in the 177 car into the wall, of course, as well. There'll be no yellow flags. And we go straight to the replay here. There's that Starbucks coffee car up ahead right now of John Morgan, and into the wall they go. Scott Kirshner was a sitting duck for sure. Look at the drivers behind. Oh, someone else
Ridley's
into the wall behind.
Ridley was involved in that. He's jumped straight into the pits anyway, as Craig will try and get another look at this. but there was multiple drivers involved in that, so we're losing more and more of the field here.
So it was the number 64 of Anthony Rice up ahead. There he is, Rice on his roof as well. Another car involved too up ahead. Was that Steve Kube?
I might well have been. No, it wasn't. He was involved in the earlier incident. Might have been Ollie Peacock, actually.
Ollie, yeah, that's possible too. Exactly,
yeah, it's Ollie Peacock.
So Ollie Peacock, there's the number 23 of Peacock. Oh, he had nowhere to go. Another car sustaining damage too. So it's just reduced this battle for the lead halfway through this event.
John Morgan having a spin in the pits as well, we just saw.
It's not a laughing matter, but at the same time, it's quite...
Well, he was missing a rear wing, so I think I'll give him a pass on that one.
Yeah, exactly. Unfortunate for John Morgan, whose race was looking good for a potential victory. So were 10 other drivers, it has to be said. But he was up there and up the order, down to 6 here. Thanks again, Paul, for your comments here halfway through the race. We'll let him focus back on production. Someone we haven't spoken about much is Kari-Pekka Vieltavari. And he's into the 5th position. Began this race from 12th. He's just been sitting down the back end of the order. One trick I used to use as we see 3 wide for the lead yet again. One trick I used to use is I used to try and avoid the draft if I was trying to burn fuel, but I don't see any reason why these drivers would be trying to burn fuel at this stage of the race. Unless you've overfueled yourself accidentally, because we know with the draft, you do save an immense amount of fuel, and it just throws your fuel calculations out of the window. And without pace car, of course, too, it's you can't save any fuel. So there's so many factors that can come into play alongside each other. The 53 and 111 of Jean-Michel Chagnon. Is that 3 wide? I think it's 3 wide. It's off camera, but there's certainly, yeah, we missed Jean-Michel Chagnon around, not Jean-Michel Chagnon, so excuse me, Pete Tinkler for the lead around the outside. I thought he just vanished off screen, but so hard to fit these guys in. They're going so quick. Two by two. Pete Tinkler, he's had enough. He's going for the outside here. He's got enough momentum to sweep in and make this work. It's whether or not Noyon will give him the turn in. And he does, but Pete Tinkler is not aware of it. Doesn't react in time. Noyon switches to the outside line, trying to aid Pete Tinkler's advantage here. But Vandenberg aggressive with 13 laps remaining. So it is down to these 6. I'll be very surprised if Craig Ridley, 37 seconds behind them, wins this event. Then again, it's motor racing. Anything can happen. Is this deja vu? I think it is. Vandenberg, Noyon, Tinkler, 3 wide yet again.
I'll tell you one thing, and that is using the outside line isn't a bad idea really, because you can rubber it in a little bit throughout the race, and that'll maybe give you an advantage, give you another possibility of making moves towards the end of this race. So I wouldn't count those out on the outside, but ideally in this race at the moment, how it looks, that low inside line is the one that you want to be working towards.
And that's what we were discussing early on in the event. In those opening laps, the drivers had no opportunity on that outside line. Just wasn't working. Now it seems to be rubbering in. And we're only 2/3 through this event. So whether or not Pete Tinkler is just biding his time, trying to make it work, it's the Dale Earnhardt Jr. line. Every time I watch NASCAR, he always seems to be up on the high line. Once every 10 years. No, I'm joking. But through turn 1. And I just feel like I'm having deja vu at the moment, Paul. It's the same 3 wide. heading into 2 yet again.
Well, this is it, because you've not got the multiple rows of drivers going in the draft. You're not really having that train effect happening here. So these drivers, they're pretty stagnant at the moment, and because they're able to just keep flat out on the throttle all the way through, as Nyon gets a little bit close to Vandenberg there. But because they're able to just keep flat out on the throttle, it's all really about who makes a mistake and who maybe can get a good run, use the draft, and can pull out at the right point to be able to get a run.
Nyon just needs to be careful. He's got to hold a line. He keeps doing that too, just allows Vandenberg up the inside. So certainly looks deliberate, and for whatever reason, we'll see if it works. Nyon liking that second line there, the middle groove. That high groove still working well for Pete Tinkler, only because he gets that draft here on the main stretch. Sitting comfortably behind is Kari-Pekka Vieltojavi. He's in that red and green fluoro livery, and there's one little piggy coming home there in the background. I think that might be Craig Ridley. No, it's not. It's definitely a lap car behind.
Yeah.
So Ridley is pretty much almost half a lap behind these guys. Fletcher and Particulus haven't made strides there into the lead pack. They're going to have to start thinking about this soon with less than 10 to go. Fuel won't come into play, Paul. So it's about these drivers just putting the pedal to the metal and getting to the finish line. Yet again, up the inside goes Vandenberg. Any reason why you think that's occurring?
Well, Vandenberg is struggling with top speed. I just want to quickly look at that here. And it's this corner here, that front wing. And it's all down the left side as well. There is damage to that car, and you can see how the others are just able to pull away from him and get the top speed on him. But he seems to have the better run through the corners, so he seems to have a better car that's suiting those corners. Maybe that extra drag just giving him a little bit of insistence there on the left hand side, but certainly he's struggling down the straights, and I think this is where he'll struggle to challenge for a race win here.
So I would say, and just based on the exit he got there, coming out of turn 4, I'd say he has no chance to win this race, Paul, because no matter how good of a slingshot he gets, he's just going to have so much drag and resistance. And look, the wheel, the camber looks bent anyway. Doesn't look the same on any other car. But if I have a look at the main stretch, I definitely feel like that front left wheel is a little bent, of course, too.
Now, Pete Tinkler's taking a little bit of a different approach here. He's trying to crowd out that white and fluorescent green car, but really he was trying to take a different approach. Look at how close it is there between Vandenberg and your race leader Nyon.
Vandenberg for the lead with 7 to go.
Oh,
he's made contact. He's going to spin. Oh, he keeps it together. And he's into the wall. Vandenberg's race is done and dusted. Well, we're never going to find out whether or not he could have won this race with damage. He's going to have terminal damage. TNT racing car into the wall. And this is where it occurred. Oh, got a bit too close to the rear wheel there of Jean-Michel Nyon. And there we go. That car's a write-off right now. So flags waving for this round of the SimLab Pro Cup compared to Road Atlanta. Plenty of wind speed available. 5 cars out there for the lead at the moment. The battle continues. Nyon at the front. On that outside line is yet again Pete Tinkler. Has one less car to deal with. Can ride 2 wide here in the closing laps. How about Daniel Fletcher, who's just been hunting these 2 down? Remaining stagnant. Aldous Particulus in the 4th position. And then Kari-Pekka Vieltojavi in 5th. Oh, going into the pits is Nyon.
Must have some form of damage or something from that from an incident. So now we're down to there's 2 cars in the pits, so we're down to 3 now. Is fuel
or is it fuel? Is it fuel or is it anything else?
Well, I'm thinking, is it possibly fuel because they've been running relatively with so few cars around them? Maybe they're not able to save as much fuel as they expected.
That can occur too. Around the outside goes Daniel Fletcher for the lead. Oh, how about Aldous Particulars? He backs off here on the back stretch.
Here's a question for you. Did Craig Ridley identify that early? Well, those two are in the pits a very long time. They're still in the pits now. So, yeah, their race is done for Nyan and Kerry Pekka.
The thing with that is, if I'm Ridley,
they're all in.
They're
no,
all coming in
one Fletcher dummied. The other two are in. Oh, this is going to be tight now.
So the only reason I don't think, and I may be wrong, I don't think it will work with Ridley is when you're out of the pack for that long, you just lose so much time. So that's the only reason why I wouldn't pit early. Out of the pits goes Jean-Michel Nayon. I thought they'd be fine for fuel with the drafting they had, but it seems not. So with 4 to go here, they just cannot make the finish. And it looks like nobody at the moment has received any speed penalties as far as I know. For Fletcher, this is, I think, the worst outcome, driving on your own with no draft.
Yeah, definitely. It's not ideal, that's for sure. But all of a sudden, Craig Ridley now is up into 3rd place. But it's 7 seconds. Oh no, make that 4 seconds. As here comes your leader, Daniel Fletcher, onto pit road. This is going to be tight.
He was very close to speeding there on the entry as well, I thought.
It was, yeah.
So, talking about this, Particulars looks like he's ahead of Ridley by 3-4 seconds.
There you go, 3.2 seconds.
Well, yeah, it's changed. Kirshner and Jean-Michel Nayon make their way past Craig Ridley. No, they don't. They make their way past Pete Tinkler. Excuse me. Ridley is 12 seconds up the road. So, excuse me. I'm looking at a couple of names shuffling through the order. Ridley's ahead of that bunch.
Yep.
Ridley's fine. Ridley's on the main stretch right now. So, maybe you're right, Paul. Maybe Ridley's played this to perfection.
I don't know, because Fletcher is out as these guys go 3 wide down the down the front stretch here. But Fletcher's come out the pits about 3 seconds ahead, but that gap is going to close up. We'll look at that in just a moment, because I'm keeping an eye on these guys going around turn number 1, but they should be clear. So there's your leader on screen right now, and look at that gap there, 2.8 seconds with 4 to go. I think he's in a good spot.
Certainly is. I was getting concerned, wasn't I? Because I thought I saw Fletcher running all on his own. But he seems to be fine here. Trying to run such a low line here on the main stretch. Up ahead, of course, of Fletcher is Anthony Rice. He is not a lap down, and I don't think he will be by the end of this event. But the pack is just a bit too far behind as Fletcher heads into turn 1. This pack comes out of turn 4. Very quick pit stop pole there for Fletcher. So he has practiced that to perfection. He's got everything right. And what a pit stop phase for him.
Yeah, that was worked out absolutely brilliantly to him. As getting a bit closer, getting an eye on and Kirchner there. But great to see Kirchner back out and running in relatively okay fashion here. Along with Ridley in front as well, but they're 12 seconds ahead of Ridley. Now, as those 3 and 4 battle it out, Ridley has actually been gaining on 2nd place, hasn't he?
He has, and it's getting within... Well, he's in the draft for sure right now. Ridley's going to slingshot his way past. There they are on screen. And Craig Ridley, who we didn't see most of this event, should still claim a podium here. And some good, well, a strong haul of points, certainly.
He's somebody who is synonymous with the Pro Mazda, isn't he? And somebody who does very well in that car.
Yeah, he certainly is. I think the podium's sealed, but I don't think the 2nd position is sealed at all. As Particulars now behind. Just rides the draft of Craig Ridley for the moment. 2 to go here. Fletcher heads into the final corner for the penultimate time. White flag will wave, and we'll have 1 to go here at Indianapolis for the SimLab Pro Cup. Thanks for joining us as well on RaceSpotTV, streaming live on the not streaming live on the REC network, streaming live on RaceSpotTV, excuse me. White flag waves. Daniel Fletcher will begin the final lap for round 5 of the SimLab Pro Cup for 2019. Before we end, of course, as well, thanks to all our partners, of course, through Istvan Bella for his work as well on TV, Andres Werner, Simon Grossman, Nick Thiessen, Paul Smith on production, of course, for today's event here. Through the final lap, there you go. First place is all but sealed as Fletcher has 1 corner to go. Now, we know we've had crazier finishes at Indianapolis, so we'll keep an eye on him. But these two behind, well, if they had about 2-3 more laps, they would have caught Fletcher and demoted him certainly down the back end of the order. But for Ridley in particular, they continue away unscathed. For Fletcher through the final corner, if you've ever read The Art of War, preparation is everything, and Fletcher nails strategy here and wins round 5 of the SimLab Pro Cup for 2019. He claims a strong haul of points in such a fitting weekend for the Indy 500. Ridley in particular is down the back, 4 wide here across the finish line for 4th place.
Who got that? That was the 18 car that got that.
Kari-Pekka Vieltiavi. He's the man who ended out on top. It was the 3 behind who were ahead of him all race pole, and finally Kari-Pekka Vieltiavi. That felt like Stephen Bradbury.
We're going to have a look at this again, and we're going to look from above here. Look at them coming through there, though. Absolutely together across the line there, across the yard of bricks. Absolutely fantastic.
So I can't even calculate the margin. It's so uncanny right now. I think that was
4,000 of a second.
4,000? Oh yeah, between between Vieltiavi and Noyon, between all 4 drivers was 500ths of a second. 5,500ths of a second. So that's how close it was. Let's take a look at your final race results. Daniel Fletcher takes victory, of course, through the ever-quick Daniel Fletcher, isn't he? And with strategy coming into perfection in the late stages, he ends out on top there. Ridley and Porticulus in 2nd and 3rd claim a strong podium, of course, too. Look at the gap between the both of them, 1,000ths of a second across the line. So whilst we're calling Fletcher for a brilliant victory, those two had a thrilling end to the race there, of course, too. Ridley started on pole and ended up in 2nd. Wasn't in the pack for most of the event either, but still ended up with a strong haul of points. Kari-Pekka Vieltiavi, well, we know how strong that finish was there. 4 wide between himself, Noyon, Kirshner, and Tinkler, but he ended out on top for the 4th position. The other 3 respectively ending up from 5th to 7th. We've just heard word that Pete Tinkler had a penalty for speeding, of course, too. So that certainly hurt his chances, and maybe a few other drivers, of course, too. Maybe that's why Fletcher, who I thought sped heading into the pit lane, probably nailed the pit phase perfectly and ended up with such a strong advantage. Down the back end of the order, Anthony Rice, the only driver left on the lead lap, followed by Steve Kubey and John Morgan, who ended up getting back out and there on the racetrack despite heavy incidents, along with Fabio Berchtold, of course, too. DNFs in this event include Erwin Vandenberg, who we saw have a massive incident. Ollie Peacock involved in a separate incident, of course, too. And we had Kurt Van Wagenen on the opening few laps, not being able to finish this event. Ollie Rotkin, Henry Robert, and Mark Veron did not start this race. We didn't see them out there on the racetrack. So that is it for the SimLab Pro Cup for 2019. Round 5 has concluded, and thanks for joining us here on RaceSpotTV. The next round, of course, will be on the 2nd of June. That's just a week's time. Have I got that date correct? Yeah, the 1st of June, excuse me. 2nd of June in my time in Australia. It's so early in the morning here. It's 7 a.m. And that will be around Belle Isle in Detroit. Back to the road courses, of course, too. There's only 2 oval courses for the SimLab Pro Cup for 2019. The next one we head to will be Gateway for round 12, all the way down in August, of course, too. For a season that ends at Laguna Seca on the 21st of September. Don't miss it. 18 laps from Belle Isle coming up shortly. I've been Jonathan Simon here in the commentary booth alongside Paul Smith, who's also on production for this event, of course, too. Thanks to Istvan Bello, Andreas Werner, Simon Grossman, Nick Thiessen for all their work behind the scenes, because this has been a RaceSpotTV presentation broadcasted on the iRacing Esports Network. No, it hasn't, Paul. I've got to get that out of my head. You're going to laugh at me. I know it. It's just muscle memory. It hasn't been broadcasted on the Esports Network. Apologies. But we say so long from Indianapolis.